They have lots and lots of kids' stuff for us.
One of the largest selections, 32 different categories.
What a difference!
We can rent them for 3 evenings.
Remember when the height of tech meant rewinding tapes, untangling headphone cords, and frantically searching for a payphone? Yeah, we've come a long way. From gadgets that were once the peak of cool to trends that defined an era, we're diving into the relics of the 1980s that went from must-haves to, wait, what even is that? But there's one that was the icon of its time, hyped beyond belief, and now, well, it's basically extinct. Any guesses? Stick around to find out which one takes the crown of most obsolete. 20. MTV. Let's start with MTV, once the king of music videos, now a reality show marathon that barely remembers the M in its name. Back in the 80s, MTV was the place to catch the latest hits. You'd sit through hours of programming, hoping your favorite video would come on next. But today, it's all about Teen Mom and Jersey Shore. Gone are the days of MTV Unplugged and Yo! MTV Raps, where music reigned. Gen Z won't understand the struggle of waiting for a video when you can just hop on YouTube. Instant gratification. 19. Shopping malls. Moving forward on our list, let's talk about shopping malls. Those sprawling social hubs where the 80s youth gathered like moths to a neon-lit flame. Back then, malls were the place to see and be seen, where friendships were cemented over pretzel bites, and you'd pretend to browse cassette tapes. Fast forward to today, and malls are practically ghost towns, with more empty storefronts than customers. Thanks to online shopping, Gen Z skips the mall entirely, choosing to shop from their couch while filming TikTok challenges. To be honest, I still prefer malls. The food court may be gone, but the nostalgia, oh, it's still fresh. 18. Neon clothing. Next up, we've neon clothing, because nothing says 80s fashion quite like looking like a human highlighter. Back in the day, if your outfit couldn't be seen from space, were you even trying? Neon was everywhere, splashed across windbreakers, leg warmers, and of course, those jelly shoes that made you feel invincible. Fast forward to today, and Gen Z's calling it vintage, like they've just discovered the secrets of the universe. But while TikTok influencers play dress-up, we can't help but think, do they know the fine line between retro chic and looking like a traffic cone? 17. Walkmans. Moving on to Walkmans, a cultural icon of the 80s that transformed how we experienced music. If you didn't have one clipped to your belt, were you even part of the cool crowd? You'd pop in your favorite cassette, and with a satisfying click, you were instantly transported to your own personal concert. Yet, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Rewinding tapes was a workout for your fingers, and untangling those cords was an Olympic sport. Today's youth might find the concept of a Walkman amusing, but it was a tactile experience that made music feel special. 16. Answering machines. Next up, let's talk about answering machines, the original "I'm too busy to talk to you" device. Before smartphones made ghosting a swipe away, we had these charming little gadgets that let us dodge calls with panache. You could screen calls like a pro and leave messages with the perfect mix of casual and awkward. Today, with caller ID and blocking features, the art of avoiding people has never been easier. Though answering machines have faded into obscurity, they remind us of a time when communication was personal, making avoiding people feel both polite and strategic. 15. Video rental stores. Next on our nostalgia trip is video rental stores, the ancestors of Netflix, where the thrill of browsing was only matched by the crushing disappointment of finding your favorite movie checked out. Remember the excitement of walking in, greeted by the smell of stale popcorn and rows of VHS tapes? The real challenge wasn't just watching movies, it was the hunt for that elusive title. You'd scan the aisles, heart racing, only to discover that The Breakfast Club was gone. Again. And let's not forget those delightful late fees. Today, we chuckle at the nostalgia of sifting through racks of tapes, longing for a simpler time. 14. Arcades. And then there were arcades, the neon-lit wonderlands where kids gathered to spend their allowance on a chance to play Street Fighter and Pac-Man. Lining up for your turn was the ultimate test of patience, especially when you could just download games at home now. The clink of quarters and the buzz of excitement were unmatched. Who needs social interaction when you can scream at a screen? Sure, modern gaming is convenient, but nothing beats the charm of sweating it out in a crowded arcade, sharing the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat. Ah, the nostalgia of a simpler, more social gaming era. 13. VHS tapes and VCRs. Before streaming, we rewound tapes. Next up, let's rewind to the glory days of VHS tapes and VCRs, the original streaming services that required a gym membership just to enjoy a movie night. The satisfying thunk of a tape sliding into the VCR was only overshadowed by the heart-stopping moment of realizing you'd rented a movie that was scratched beyond recognition. And let's not forget the joy of rewinding, because who doesn't love a good finger workout? Today, we laugh at those clunky tapes, but let's be honest, there was something uniquely satisfying about the ritual of popping in a tape and hoping for the best. 12. Rotary phones. Turning to rotary phones, we find ourselves in the ultimate test of patience for today's instant gratification generation. Can you imagine spending precious minutes dialing a number, one painstaking rotation at a time? Today's youth might giggle at the thought of waiting for the dial to return, but back then, it was a rite of passage that built character. And let's not forget the joy of getting a busy signal, because who needs a caller ID when you can play the thrilling game of Guess Who's Not Home? 11. Boomboxes. Now, let's crank up the volume and explore the world of boomboxes, the ultimate portable music players that made lugging around a giant stereo seem both cool and completely absurd. Who needs AirPods when you could carry around a stereo so big it practically screamed, "Look at me"? These 80s icons were the pinnacle of street cred, capable of blasting tunes so loudly they might cause a small neighborhood to spontaneously dance or complain. It was all about the spectacle of music, with a side of back pain from lugging around D batteries. Sure, you might have looked ridiculous with these behemoths, but nothing said, "I'm here to party," quite like a boombox perched on your shoulder. 10. Trapper keepers. Now, let's turn our attention to trapper keepers, the original binders that were the epitome of self-expression in the 80s. With their colorful, over-the-top designs, these organizers were like a fashion statement for your school supplies. Today's generation may have custom phone cases, but back then, we had unicorn-adorned binders that screamed, "Look at me, I'm organized and fabulous." You could practically feel the envy radiating from your classmates as you strutted into class with your trapper keeper under your arm. The Velcro closure was a satisfying touch, adding an air of mystery to what treasures lay inside. Trapper keepers was the ultimate blend of functionality and flamboyance, proving that even school supplies can be a canvas for creativity. 9. Aquanet hairspray and big hair. Next up, let's talk about Aquanet hairspray and big hair, the ultimate symbols of 80s excess. If your hair didn't look like it was trying to touch the sky, were you even trying? Aquanet was the hairspray that turned your hair into an immovable fortress. You'd spend hours sculpting your mane into a towering masterpiece, layers of hairspray holding it in place like cement. Sure, your hair could survive a hurricane, but the smell? That was just a bonus. Modern influencers definitely wouldn't stand a chance with those sky-high do's. Aquanet and big hair is proof that sometimes more really is more. 8. Dot matrix printers. Moving on to dot matrix printers, the clunky, noisy workhorses of the 80s and 90s. These machines were the office's version of a drum solo, churning out endless perforated pages with a sound that could either motivate or drive you insane. The print quality? Let's just say it was a bit pixelated. You could barely make out a photo, and the text looked like it had been typed by a drunk spider. But who could resist the joy of tearing off those multi-part forms? Dot matrix printers were the unsung heroes of the workplace, tirelessly producing reports and invoices while giving us all a crash course in patience. So let's raise a toast to these noisy relics of the past that remind us how far we've come. 7. Parachute pants. Next up, we've got parachute pants. The swishy, crinkly 80s fashion that made you feel like you were ready to jump out of a plane or break dance at any given moment. These pants were as loud as they were baggy, making subtlety a distant memory. Forget about today's skinny jeans or yoga pants. Parachute pants made sure everyone heard you coming from a mile away. Practical. Sure, those pockets could store your entire life. Stylish? Let's just say they were unforgettable. Today's fashionistas might scoff, but you can bet that Gen Z is secretly plotting a TikTok revival of these baggy beauties. After all, what's more fun than wearing pants you can hear from a mile away? 6. Waterbeds. And now onto waterbeds, the king of 80s bedroom excess. Sleeping on a waterbed was like floating on a luxurious, sloshy cloud, until you sprang a leak and turned your room into a slip and slide. These liquid-filled mattresses promised ultimate relaxation, but came with a healthy side of potential disaster. If you managed to avoid flooding your floor, you were living the dream. Maintenance was a nightmare, though. Draining, refilling, reinforcing the floor, it was a whole thing. But hey, nothing said, "I'm living large, quite like a waterbed," the ultimate in 80s comfort and chaos. 5. Floppy disks. Next up, let's dive into the world of floppy disks. Those 1.44 megabyte squares of high-tech wizardry that could barely hold a single TikTok video today. These flimsy little saviors were once the pinnacle of data storage, helping us share files, save games, and pray we didn't accidentally delete everything in one misclick. The sound of the drive reading a floppy was basically a tech anthem, and who could forget the joy of needing 5 disks just to load one video game? Today's Gen Z can't even fathom carrying a stack of these fragile squares around, but back then, they were our entire digital universe. Floppy disks tried their best, but thank goodness for cloud storage. 4. Fax machines. Now, turning to fax machines, the once revolutionary devices that made sending documents feel like a scene from a sci-fi movie. Faxing was the cutting-edge technology that allowed you to send a document in mere minutes. It was the vintage email, complete with the delightful screeching sounds of a machine that felt like progress, or a robot having a meltdown. You'd cross your fingers, hoping the paper didn't jam or vanish into fax purgatory. Today, fax machines are about as useful as carrier pigeons, replaced by instant messaging and PDFs. But let's not forget the thrill of those blurry pages that came straight out of fax machines, the noisy, clunky ancestors of email. 3. Camcorders. Next up, let's dive into camcorders, the shoulder-busting gadgets that made you feel like Spielberg, even if you were just recording your dog chasing its tail. These beasts were the go-to for capturing every moment, whether it was a blurry vacation video or your little sister's recital, complete with shaky zoom-ins. Fast forward to today, and Gen Z is out here filming their entire lives in 4K on something that fits in their pocket. Camcorders gave us memories, sure, but also a sore shoulder and a stack of tapes you'd probably never watch again. Camcorders are the giants of nostalgia that made filmmaking a workout. 2. Pagers. Now, turning to pagers, the I'm important devices of the 80s that made you feel like a secret agent every time you received a beep. In today's world of instant messaging and smartphones, these beep-back nightmares would be utterly pointless. Nothing said boss status like a little plastic device that could only tell you someone was trying to reach you. No texts, no calls, just a cryptic code, and the fun scavenger hunt to find a payphone. Today, Gen Z has the luxury of instant responses, while we were left chasing down signals like we were part of a secret spy mission. pagers were a status symbol of the past, but now they're just a quirky reminder that even cutting-edge tech can become a punchline. 1. Phone book. And here it is, the moment you've all been waiting for, the grand finale of our retro rewind, the phone book. Yes, that massive yellow brick of paper that somehow found its way to your doorstep whether you wanted it or not. This is the hefty tomes that once held the key to connecting with friends, family, and that mysterious neighbor you never spoke to. Back in the 80s, this beast was your go-to source for finding anyone's number, because nothing says convenience like flipping through 1,000 pages of microscopic text. Got the wrong John Smith? Tough luck, keep flipping. These days, a phone book feels like ancient history, like receiving a scroll by a messenger pigeon. Google has officially dethroned this paperweight, but let's give it credit for being the original contact list, even if it's now just a doorstop. And that's a wrap on our trip down memory lane. We've seen it all, from boomboxes to phone books, those once essential items from the 1980s that now feel like relics from another planet. It's wild to think how fast technology has changed, turning these once necessary gadgets into conversation starters at a retro-themed party. But hey, they paved the way for the conveniences we enjoy today. So, whether you're rocking your AirPods or Googling your heart out, let's give a nostalgic nod to the stuff that got us here. Thanks for joining us on this journey through things from 1980. Once completely necessary, now obsolete. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments which throwback item you miss the most. Also, hit the bell icon to never miss any of our upcoming updates.